Hey, it's Katie, and welcome back to my booktube channel. Today I will be giving you guys some book recommendations based on winter vibes, and I feel like some of us might have a different idea of what winter feels like. I mean, even I have like 3 different winter vibes, so I'm gonna focus on the 3 that I have, and if you have some other vibes you think of when it comes to winter, please let me know below because I'm very curious. But the ones I will be focusing on today are the more like cold, darker, more fantasy-based reads, and then I have a section on some warmer, happier, like more heartwarming reads because I feel like, winter is really cold. Sometimes you get really lonely and you just want something that's really sweet and cute. So that's that section. And then the last section I have is more adventure-y, like books that take place in other countries, because I feel like during winter time, at least where I'm from, it's super cold and snowy outside and you don't really go anywhere. You just stay in your house, which, I mean, during quarantine, that's what you're supposed to do anyway, but it just makes you think about all the places you'd want to go if you could. So I feel like picking up a book that takes place in a different country and feels like you're traveling is a good way to kind of help with this. So those are the 3 categories I will be focusing on, and we can just jump into the first one. So like I said, the first section are more like, they feel very like cold and dark and mysterious, and they're definitely all fantasy books, I think, because to me that's kind of what winter means. Like when it gets into the colder months, like October, November, and then like January through March, I kind of like to read these kinds of books. So the first one we have is Legendborn by Tracy Dion, and this follows Bree after her mother dies, and she ends up moving into this early college program, and on her first night there, she witnesses this magical attack. So a member of this secret society on campus called Legendborn tries to wipe it from her memory, so she has no idea it happened to her, except she still remembers, and it ends up awakening this magical ability that she has. And she ends up deciding to kind of infiltrate this secret society to kind of learn more about her powers and to also learn more about her mother's death, because through all of this, she's learned that there's more to it than what is in the police report. And this one is also a King Arthur retelling, I think. Well, not I think, I read it. So yes, it's a King Arthur retelling, but that was a cool element that I didn't expect when I picked it up. This book is packed with different kinds of magic, and like I said, it's a King Arthur retelling, so there's a lot of like that type of society in there that you get to see. There's a lot of action, and there's definitely kind of, not really a quest, but sort of. I don't know how to explain it. It's part of the King Arthur thing. I'm really bad at explaining this book for some reason, which is funny because I loved it so much when I read it, but then I try to put it into words what it's about, and I for some reason can't. But it's amazing. I heard amazing things about it all over BookTube at the end of last year, and it definitely lives up to the hype for me. So, I don't know, this one just kind of felt like cold and wintry for some reason. So I would give this one a chance for sure. The next one we have is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. And this one is a historical fiction meets mystery with a little bit of romance in there too. So it kind of combines a whole bunch of elements. And I honestly really love this one, which surprised me because I am not somebody that really reads a lot of mystery books, and up to this point, I liked books with some historical fiction in it, but this is like a lot of historical fiction, so I wasn't sure how I'd feel, but it was amazing. So I definitely still recommend you giving it a chance if it's not your typical read. But it takes place in London in the 1800s, and it follows our main character, whose name I can't remember for some reason, but she kind of goes against all of these gender norms because what she loves to do in her free time, instead of going to these tea parties, is help her uncle out at his lab. And they dissect is not the right word. But basically, they receive dead bodies or they go to murder scenes and they help figure out how the victim died. And they end up getting roped into this serial killer investigation who just happens to be Jack the Ripper. And so they try to figure out who's doing it and try to stop the murders. And that is super cool, especially because there's a little blurb on the back, and the last sentence of the blurb says, "I was the girl who loved the Ripper." So if that doesn't draw you in, I don't know what will, but definitely feels like winter. I mean, it takes place in London, which at least what you hear when you're not from London is that it's really cold and dark and rainy. So that obviously feels like winter. And then the fact that it's like a mystery just fits the winter vibe for me. And then there's also some pictures throughout it. So there's like an old building here. There's also some like grosser pictures of, I don't know if they're dead bodies, but they're definitely not, they're not cute. So be prepared. But yeah, so there's definitely some creepy pictures throughout it. So I would be, you know, aware of that before you pick it up, but it's definitely worth it even with the gross pictures. I feel like it does add a cool element to it, but there's a lot of plot twists. I couldn't figure out who Jack the Ripper was until the very end with the characters, so I don't know if that's just me being bad at figuring out mysteries, or I think it's just really well written, because I kept being like, it's this person, and then it wasn't, and I was like, but it's this person, and it wasn't that person either, and it took me a while. But I feel like I'm rambling. Anyway, it's really good, and I highly recommend it if you're looking for a wintry read. I'm sure you've heard a lot about this next one, but I think it's definitely worth the hype, and if you haven't picked it up yet, you definitely should. And that is Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And this takes place in Orisha, where magic used to hum through the earth until the ruthless king had all of the Magi targeted and killed. So it left Zaylee, our main character, without her mother and their people without hope. But Zaylee ends up with this chance to bring magic back. So she goes on this quest with the help of a rogue princess trying to outrun the crown prince, who will do anything to stop magic from coming back. And this book is just so amazing. There's such a fun magic system. There's such a rich history to what's happening in the book. And even though it's really heartbreaking to see all of the Magi, I really don't know how to say that. I hope I'm saying it right. But to see all those people targeted and killed, it's like horrifying to read, but it adds such a great element to the story. And you really get to see, not the reason why, there's not really a good reason to go and target and kill these people, but you get to see the history behind it. And it follows Zaylee's perspective, the perspective of the rogue princess, and then also the crown prince who's trying to stop magic from coming back. So you kind of get a diverse perspective on this situation that's happening, and you get to kind of see how the one side validates what they're doing versus the other side being persecuted and horrified. And it's definitely really interesting to be able to see both of those perspectives. But there's so much action, so much magic. The relationships in this are amazing. You just feel so many emotions, not only through this one, but especially the second book, Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I feel like that one destroyed me. Like, I genuinely felt way more emotions in these books than I typically do. And it's a lot to process, but it's totally worth it. They're absolutely amazing. So I highly, highly recommend this one to you. The last one I have for this darker fantasy category is one that I just finished last night, and I'm obsessed with it. I read it in one day, couldn't put it down, and even now I like really need the next book in the series. I can't believe I have to wait so long for it, and I've been obsessed with looking up fan art for it. It's just so good. I feel like I could never do it justice with words. But the last one is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. And I didn't even realize that I had two of Kerri Maniscalco's books in this category, but I feel like that just goes to show how great of a writer she is. And I just love it. I mean, just look at the cover alone. is gorgeous. But this follows twin witches, Amelia and Victoria, who are hiding in secret because they don't want the humans that they're living with to know that they're witches because they don't want to be persecuted. And this takes place in, I think, 19th century Italy, which is super cool. So there's a little bit of historical fiction in there. But one day, Victoria does not show up for family dinner at their Sicilian restaurant. So Amelia sets out to find her, and she ends up finding her desecrated body. And this kind of throws her into this path for vengeance. So along this path to get revenge for her sister, she bumps into Wrath, who is one of the wicked princes of hell. And she's always been warned against the princes of hell for as long as she can remember. But he claims to be on her side and that they have a common goal of finding this murderer, but she's just not sure if she can trust him or not. And that is just so amazing. That whole concept is amazing. You have some historical fiction, which transports you to Italy back in the 19th century, which is done so well. Like, I felt like I time traveled. And then you have a little bit of the Sicilian restaurant that the family has. You have a little bit of cooking in there, which is so cool. I love books that involve cooking or baking. And then just the fact that there's these 7 wicked princes of hell that represent the 7 deadly sins, I feel like is such a badass concept. I just, obviously you could tell, I still love it so much. I mean, I only read it last night, but it's just so good. And you get to meet a couple of the other princes of hell too, along with Wrath. So that's really cool. I'm hoping that we get to meet some, like, the other princes of hell in the next book. But anyway, it is just so well done. And I can't put it into words. It's such a cool concept. It's done so well. All the characters are so cool to read about. And I love Amelia and Wrath's relationship. I love that when they first meet, it's literally like pure hatred. They don't trust each other at all. And it kind of blossoms into this nice, they're kind of a team. I guess that's kind of the right word for it throughout the remainder of the book. But I love that they literally have so much banter because they disliked each other so much. And that's always really fun to read. And there's also just so much passion in their relationship, whether it's hatred, anger, even desire sometimes, but it's just written so well. And Wrath is probably one of my all-time favorite book characters, so I really highly recommend this book. Please read it. It's so good. Oh, I love it. I need book 2 so bad. Also, I'm thinking about doing a full review of this book maybe next week, so let me know if that's something that you would be interested in, because as you can see, I really love this book and I'd love to keep talking about it. I could probably keep choosing more fantasy books to recommend you guys, but we will just leave it to that and move on to our next category, which these are the more sweet, heartwarming reads. And the first one is Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. I feel like I'm super late to getting to this series because I've heard amazing things about it for so long. But for those of you that don't know, it is a graphic novel that takes place in an all-boys school. And we have Charlie on one hand, who is openly gay and definitely a high-strung overthinker. And then on the other hand, we have Nick, who is this sweetheart rugby player. And they end up meeting and becoming friends, but soon their friendship starts to blossom into a little more potentially. This is just such a cute read. It was super quick too, so if you're looking for a really quick read, this is definitely one you should consider. But it was just so sweet to watch their friendship blossom and watch them start to trust each other and really care for each other. It's super cute, and then there's also like a little touch of rugby, so if you like sports, that's a fun element. But even if you don't like sports, it doesn't take up a huge section of the book or anything, so you don't have to worry about that. But I don't know, it was just so sweet, and I'm really trying to start reading more books in the LGBTQ community because I feel like I didn't read enough of those last year. So I definitely am excited to keep reading ones like this. And there's also a huge cliffhanger at the end. So be warned about that because I was not ready for the book to end and I couldn't believe it was over. So I need to get volume 2 very soon. I don't know how many of them there are. There's at least 3. There might be 4 total. So know that before you jump into this series. But like I said, it's so sweet. It's so wholesome. And I just feel like this would be perfect if you're looking for a heartwarming read. Next, we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. And this is basically a Twitter rivalry over a grilled cheese recipe. So it follows 2 main characters, Pepper and Jack, which is a cheese pun, and I love it. But Pepper's family has this huge fast food chain called Big League Burger, and Jack's family has this little family deli. And one day, Big League Burger comes out with this grilled cheese recipe that is identical to the one Jack's grandma has always had at their deli. So he ends up tweeting at them, saying that they stole the recipe, and this sparks a Twitter feud between the 2 businesses. And little do they know that Pepper and Jack actually know each other at school. So you kind of get to see them interact in these 2 different capacities where they don't know that that's who's running the Twitter account. So that's really fun. It's really sweet. You have these family businesses that you get to see too. And when Pepper's not helping out with the family Twitter account, she's baking things with her sister for their blog. So you have the baking element, and there's definitely a lot of really good banter and like snarky comments through the Twitter war. And that's really fun. I don't know. It's been a while since I've read this one, but it still sticks with me as being super cute. So if you're looking for something like that, I highly recommend this one. All right, so the last one in this category is 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston. And I had so much fun reading this one. It follows Sophie, who overhears her boyfriend saying that he wants a break from her. So she gets upset, obviously, and breaks up with him and flees to her grandparents' house where the rest of her large family is gathered for the holiday season. And they hear what happened to her, so her Nona comes up with this great idea that Sophie is going to go on 10 dates with 10 different guys set up by her different family members. And so they set up like this board with all the different dates written out, and everybody's rushing up to write their name on which day they want. And so she goes on these 10 very different dates with all these very different guys, and they honestly could all be their own story. There's so many different crazy things. Like one takes place at this nativity scene, another one is at this really crazy underground party, and it just gets even crazier from there. But basically she goes on all of these dates, and it kind of reminds me of The Bachelor, I guess, even though I've never watched The Bachelor, but I can imagine that this is what it would probably feel like. But anyway, it is so cute. Like I said, a super fun read. You get to meet her huge family, and all of these dates are so unique and different from the other ones that there's some really funny ones. There's some ones that I feel like gave me a little bit of secondhand embarrassment, but there's also some really great ones, and it's just really fun because while she does this, she also reconnects with some of her cousins that she hasn't been around in a while. So it's fun to watch that family dynamic grow, and it was just so sweet. Like, as I read it, I just kept thinking about how cute it was and how much I loved it, and I really hope at least one of you guys will pick it up because that would make me really happy to have recommended this for somebody. So now we will move on to the more adventurous travel category, and the first one we have is Even If the Sky Falls by Mia Garcia, which I know I've talked about quite a lot on this channel, but that's because it is so cute. And it takes place in New Orleans. So if you're like me and you've always wanted to experience that, this is the book for you. It all takes place over the course of, I think, 24 hours on a summer night during Mardi Gras. So pretty much everything that you could ever want in a New Orleans novel. But it follows our main character who's trying to escape her life at home, so she goes on this retreat. But when she's there, she feels more trapped than ever, so she flees from that and joins the Mardi Gras celebration, where she meets this amazing guy, and they try to make this pact to not talk about their real lives or anything. Not that they lie to each other, but they use fake names. They don't dwell on the past. They just live in the moment. And I love that. It's super cute. Even though it's only a 24-hour romance, it definitely feels like way more than that. And it's sweet, and you get to experience basically everything New Orleans has to offer. So if you're interested in that, this one is for you. Next, we have Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins. And this one takes place in Scotland, if you're interested in that. But Daisy's sister gets engaged to the Prince of Scotland, so their whole family gets thrust into the spotlight even though Daisy wants nothing to do with it. And she gets forced to move into the royal castle with her sister. And while she's there, this guy Miles is hired to help tone down Daisy's personality because she's very loud, she has bright red hair, and definitely not what a royal family is known for. And the prince's younger brother is also determined to drag her into a scandal. So there's a lot happening. It's really fun to experience Scotland. You get a lot of royalty in this, a lot about the media and the way they portray things. And it's just a great read overall. So if you're interested in Scotland, go ahead and grab this one. The next two I have are both by Jenna Welch, and that is Love and Gelato and Love and Luck. Love and Gelato takes place in Italy, where after Lena's mother dies, she moves in with her father in Italy because that is her mother's last dying wish. And so she goes to move in with this man that she's never met in this country she's never been to. And while she's there, somebody gives her this journal that used to be her mother's, and it's filled with her mother's adventures while she was in Italy. So you get to see Lena kind of try to follow in her mother's footsteps and experience all the best parts of Italy right alongside her mother's journal entries. And you do get to see some of the entries in here, so that's a cool element that's added to this book. But this is such a cute summer romance that takes place right in Italy and makes everybody want to travel there. And then her other one is Love and Luck, which takes place in Ireland. And this follows Addie, who has traveled to Ireland for her aunt's wedding. And while she's there, she's trying to forget about something that happened back at home that's making her miserable. And she ends up finding this guidebook called Ireland for the Heartbroken. And this talks about all these different places you need to go and these things you need to do in those locations to help you get over your heartbreak. So when travel plans change and Addie finds herself trapped in the same car as her brother Ian and his new friend Rowan, she tries to fulfill all of the things that she finds in her guidebook and might make a new connection along the way. And last but not least, we have Love Boat Taipei by Abigail Hing, and obviously this one takes place in Taipei, but it follows Ever, whose family lives in Ohio, but over the summer they decide to send her to Taipei to learn Mandarin and learn more about her heritage. So Ever is expecting to go to this place with a bunch of overachievers and do all of these boring things that her parents want. But when she gets there, she realizes that it is a whole different experience, and they end up going to these clubs and drinking some snake blood sake, and I hope I said that right, I don't know, but doing all of these crazy things that her parents would hate to know that she's doing. But this gives her the experience of breaking her parents' rules, and she wants to keep doing this because she feels trapped. And we get to see how far she'll go before she starts to break her own rules even. But this book definitely transports you right to Taipei, and there's so many different things you get to experience which are so cool. There's different kinds of dances, like I said about the club and all of the snake blood things, and just so much more. You get to meet all of these amazing characters, and there's so much character growth throughout the book, especially with the main character. She goes through a lot of changes, but it's just really amazing. I think it focuses on some really good topics that are important to read about, and it also takes place in a fun, unique country. So if you're interested in that, definitely pick up this one. All right, so those are all of the book recommendations I have for you today. Hopefully, at least one of them caught your eye and one of these winter vibes fits your winter vibe. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and also make sure to click the notification bell so you know when I upload next. Thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you in my next video.